Hello, everyone. Nathaniel Gavronsky here, and I'm at a very, very special place. This place is known as Jumonville Glen. This is where Washington, along with about 40 men, some Virginia militiamen, and some Native allies, come across a group of French soldiers in the early morning hours of May 28th, 1754. Now, there's some significance to this. A little bit of the earlier story is that, Washington is on a mission from the governor of Virginia to tell the French to leave this area, that this area is actually claimed by the British in the colony of Virginia. The French are coming through here trying to tell the British, Washington and his men, that this area belongs to France and that they are to leave. So this is kind of the beginnings of a couple of different missions that Washington will be on, but this one's very, very significant. Washington has met up with several different groups of French soldiers over a period of time, and is trying to deliver a letter stating that this is claimed for Britain. He's sent away. He comes back and forth. Dinwiddie, the governor of Virginia, keeps sending him out on missions. Here, he comes across with his Indian native allies, a group of French soldiers that are in the middle of breakfast, early morning hours. Now, Washington had, let's say, less than adequate control over some of his native allies. When they came and attacked the British came and attacked the French here. The French really weren't prepared. It was a slaughter. One of the men, an ensign by the name of Jumonville, was killed here. Now, here's where the problem supposedly occurs, is that this person supposedly is a French diplomat who was sent here trying to find the British to inform them of the same thing that the British were trying to inform the French about. This was a diplomatic mission. That becomes a problem. Washington's inability to keep his subordinates under control leads to most of the French soldiers here being massacred, scalped, killed. Battle's over. The natives just keep killing them. Kind of reminiscence of what happened at the battle at the end of the Mexican in Texas war, where Texas got independence. When the battle was over, but the Texans kept killing all the Mexicans. Kind of same deal. But here's the significance about this spot, and I'm kind of showing you a little bit around it. The weight of what happens here. I mean, there's a couple other fights. Washington has a surrender on the 4th of July, mind you. A couple of weeks later, actually on the 4th of July. This is May 28th, so we're talking, the short time period afterwards. Washington doesn't speak French. The terms of surrender are in French. He supposedly admits that he killed the ambassador of France to the British colonies. One thing leads to another, and the French-Indian War, 7 Years' War, starts. Now, this is the first war that's on one war is on multiple continents. It's in North America, Central America, the Caribbean, Africa, Europe, and the Indian subcontinent. It is a true world war. Multiple countries are in the fight: Spain, France, Great Britain, all the colonies thereof. This is a massive conflict. It's this conflict that the British government is trying to tax the Continentals because they spend so much money in protecting them from this conflict. It also pisses off the Continentals because the British win the war. They take over all the territory from France, but then they don't allow the colonists to settle, to come in, to take any territory, because it's designated for the natives. And the British weren't planning on keeping it that way, but for the status quo, the British weren't going to let the colonists expand westward because they just weren't ready for it. They had spent all the money was gone. The British were broke. The French had just lost a lot of their territory. If it was 10 years earlier, 10 years later, or if this little event here with George Washington never happens at all, a couple of things happen. One, the British Crown is not trying to recuperate losses from this conflict. Therefore, they're not putting taxes on the colonists. There is no upheaval and unrest in Boston. There just isn't any. The Townsend Acts are not passed. The Stamp Act, the Tea, all that stuff never happens because they're not trying to recuperate any of the losses from that conflict. At least not at that exact time. A couple of years later, maybe, but here's the significance. Say the revolution doesn't happen at all, or happens to a decade or two later. Napoleon doesn't have the ability to come to power. Napoleon's time period is very, very specific. If the French don't go broke trying to help the Americans defeat the British, Napoleon's rise doesn't happen. The Napoleonic Wars don't happen. The fall of the Holy Roman Empire doesn't happen. There's no creation of Germany. Most likely the Kingdom of Italy never really happens. It's so fragmented, little bits and pieces. Most of Europe as we know it just doesn't exist. So much of our world as we know it has a focal point at this exact point. If it doesn't happen exactly as it does on the exact day that it does, everything else, if it's offset by a couple of years, changes the entire world. You know, this conflict that started off here, the Transition War, is the basic guidelines of what led to World War One. No World War One, there's no World War Two, and a lot of those, alliances and stuff were kind of derived from things that happened here, the concert of Europe, all of that stuff doesn't take place because the French Indian War never happens, the 70s War never happens, the American Revolution never happens, Napoleon doesn't come to power, there is no concert of Europe. Maybe there's a major conflict later, but that puts everything out of perspective. The powers that were powerful might not be as powerful. This one spot here, this exact location is where our entire world gets set in motion. We wouldn't recognize any of it if this spot, this exact location doesn't happen. I think that's kind of cool that you can come to this exact spot. It's I think it's on the maps. But this is, this exact spot. This is where our modern world, as we know it, was born. Without George Washington, him specifically, none of it happens. None of it happens. If it does happen, it happens way later. Washington is not even a thing. Most of the people that we consider important in our history might not be anything at all. There's a chance that if this world doesn't come to be from here, that a lot of the Enlightenment stuff doesn't really take a threshold in Europe. Maybe even in Russia, you don't see the assassination of the Tsar in 1881, which is actually probably the very next big point that changes the way our world works. The assassination of the Tsar in 1881 changes the setup for the creation of the Soviet Union. If the Tsar is not killed in 1881, Lenin's brother is not, executed for treason. Who knows? Probably the one turning point in history before this, like the turning point in history before this, probably the death of Richard the Lionheart, which was, some lucky kid apparently um, took a lucky shot when Richard was kind of walking around on a leisure walk around a fortress he was sieging. He didn't even have his armor on. He didn't think there was any trouble. Small little shoulder wound, got infected. He died uh, from basically complications of an infection. His son John becomes the king, and he's the one who signs the Magna Carta. If Richard Lionheart's there, maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe he wins. Maybe the Magna Carta is never signed. That could have a huge impact on what happened here, because the Magna Carta was a huge building block on the Declaration of Independence, and as far as Englishmen's civil rights were concerned, in the Constitution. So, like, Washington's little, from Richard the Lionheart to Washington, this is the one area, this is the one point in history, May 28th, 1754, that all of the world as we know it hinges on it. It owes its existence to right here now. Because nothing else would line up. It wouldn't happen. We wouldn't be here the way we are. Imagine all of the world differences that are because of George Washington and this exact location. And the half king, Seneca half king, that, went off half cocked and started killing half the French soldiers over here. So, anyway, that's just what I want to leave you with. There's so much more going on to this whole campaign. I've done some of the videos for it. We'll get them released, later on. But this is an important piece. Fort necessities, throw a stone's throw away from here. So that's where Washington had his only military defeat. It's really the only place where he had to surrender the field. Was there on July 4th of all days. Anyway, hope you guys kind of enjoyed this. I hope you guys kind of get to see the area. There's a deer over here. You guys can't see him, but there's plenty of wildlife in the area. So, all right, guys, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Share these videos. And as always, stay healthy, stay wealthy, and as always, stay wise, America.